killed these little souls? The answer lies back in the day of August 28, 2014. It was a Thursday when 3 children were signed out of Saks Gotha Elementary. 2 more were picked up from a nearby daycare. These 5 siblings were on their way home, and this trip should have been short, familiar, safe. But that ride took a strange turn. Instead of heading back to the modest trailer, tucked off a dirt road in Lexington County, South Carolina, the driver made a sharp, unexpected detour. The car pulled into a Walmart parking lot. What happened next wasn't just strange, it was disturbing. He forced the children out of the car. Right there, in the middle of a busy public space, he pushed them out with all his force. And then he loaded them back in. Why? No one knows. That same evening at 7:12 p.m., Amber, the children's mother, placed a call to the family home. One of the boys, not on, answered. His voice came through the receiver, young and innocent. Their conversation was brief, nothing out of the ordinary. But Amber didn't know then it would be the last time she ever heard her son speak. After that, no more calls, no returned messages, no contact. Somewhere between that moment and the turning of the clock to midnight, behind the closed doors of a quiet trailer in a small southern town, 5 children disappeared. On September 1st, the same man was seen at a Dunkin' Donuts in Spartanburg. His car rolled past strangers, past gas stations. By September 3rd, he walked through the aisles of a Walmart in West Columbia, placing saws, large plastic bins, and bottles of muriatic acid into his cart. The receipts would later speak for themselves. All the while, the children were being marked absent Friday, Monday, Tuesday. No one saw them after that day, and the man kept driving as if nothing had changed. That same day, September 3rd, Amber made the call to authorities. Her children had missed a scheduled visit. She couldn't reach them. Her gut twisted. Something was wrong, terribly wrong, but nothing happened. Not yet. It wasn't until September 9th, nearly 2 weeks after the children disappeared, that the world finally learned they were missing. But by then, it was far too late. The bodies had been discovered, mutilated, unrecognizable, until DNA confirmed who they were. These 5 siblings were children to divorced parents and the victims of their father, Timothy Jones Jr., who had mercilessly killed them in a fit of rage. Before the name Timothy Jones Jr. would forever be burned into the memory of an entire nation, before he'd be described by prosecutors as a monster, and before the unimaginable deaths of 5 beautiful children, he was just a boy born into a broken world. It all began in 1981. Timothy Jr. was the first and only child of Timothy Jones Sr. and Cindy Jones. Cindy was only 16 when she had him, barely more than a child herself, and what followed was a storm of dysfunction that seemed to lay the groundwork for something far darker down the line. Timothy Sr. would later speak out about Cindy, calling her violent and unstable. She would scream, lash out, and behave in disturbing ways. Cindy once cut up clothing with knives. She fed baby Timothy laxatives when he was still an infant. Although never officially diagnosed, people around her believed she suffered from serious mental illness. Whatever the truth, one thing was certain: she wasn't well. And when Timothy Jr. was just 18 months old, she vanished from his life completely. That abandonment followed him like a shadow. His father remarried and tried to rebuild, but Timothy Jr. had already begun slipping down a different path. In 2001, at just 20 years old, he was arrested in Illinois on a cocktail of charges: cocaine possession, check forgery, car theft. These weren't just reckless crimes, they were desperate ones. He was sentenced to 7 years in prison. He served just 2. Then came Amber Kaiser. She was 18, a young woman from Pennsylvania, when she met 22-year-old Timothy in Chicago. On paper, it might have looked like a fresh start. a chance to build something better. They got married in 2004 in DuPage County, Illinois. And from their union came 5 children: Mara, Elias, Natan, Gabriel, and Abigail. Those 5 little kids had bright eyes, soft voices, and dreams still waiting to be seen. They bounced from place to place, Pennsylvania to Mississippi, then finally South Carolina. Timothy earned a degree in computer engineering from Mississippi State University in 2011. He secured a good job at Intel in Columbia, a $71,000 salary. He had stability, success, and a full house. But a pretty picture doesn't mean peace. They didn't live in some suburban dream home. Instead, they settled in a cramped trailer in Lexington County. Amber stayed home with the children, and slowly, the cracks began to show. Amber would later testify that Timothy had disturbing beliefs. He was controlling, staunchly religious. To him, women were to be seen and not heard. Children were to be quiet, obedient, practically invisible. At one point, Amber claimed he even talked about wanting a farm full of children, not because he loved them, because he wanted to rule over them. It wasn't just ideology. When police would eventually search his belongings after the tragedy, they found religious materials, passages carefully highlighted, emphasizing corporal punishment, obedience, domination. From the outside, the Jones family might have seemed like any other conservative household: a dad with a good job, a mom at home, kids running barefoot in the yard. But inside the walls of that Lexington trailer, darkness was festering, and the man at the center of it all, Timothy Jones Jr., was quietly spiraling. You see, monsters are rarely born overnight. They're made. Piece by piece they make themselves, experience by experience, until one day they think they are above everything else. And when Timothy finally showed what he is truly capable of, it would shock the world. In the twisted tale of Timothy Jones Jr., the unraveling wasn't sudden. It was slow, agonizing, and filled with signs that, looking back, feel like a chorus of unanswered alarms. By May of 2012, things between Timothy and Amber Jones had already begun to fray at the seams. Their marriage, once held together by the fragile dream of stability and a shared home, was gasping for air. After years of dysfunction and control, Amber had enough. The couple separated, if only briefly, and what happened during those 2 weeks would haunt Timothy forever, or at least that's the narrative he'd cling to. When Jones returned to their home, he claimed to have discovered something that, to him, was unforgivable. According to his divorce attorney, Amber had been putting the kids to bed, then slipping next door to meet her paramour. The man was 19-year-old neighbor, a teenager. To Timothy, it wasn't just betrayal, it was humiliation, abandonment, a gaping wound that tore open old scars from his turbulent childhood. For a man obsessed with control, who'd already inherited a fear of being left behind. Jones began attending sessions with a family therapist and marriage counselor, April M. Hames. But rather than healing, these sessions revealed more disturbing truths about him. He didn't just feel betrayed. He felt broken. Dr. Hames later testified that Jones was terrified of being abandoned. He was a man clinging to control, driven by childhood trauma, and now his wife, his family unit, was slipping away. Timothy didn't just blame Amber for infidelity. He accused her of neglect. He told authorities she wasn't caring for the children properly. These claims prompted an investigation by South Carolina's Department of Social Services, DSS, back in 2011. When they arrived, they found a disheveled home, disorganized, chaotic, but not dangerous enough to intervene. The case was quietly closed, but the emotional distance between Amber and Timothy was only growing wider. Their marriage never recovered. Eventually, Timothy took the children and left Amber behind. He moved them all to Mississippi to live with his parents, people who had once raised him in a similarly unstable environment. And during this fragile time, the couple's final child, Abigail, was born. But their marriage had deteriorated to the point where Jones demanded a paternity test to confirm he was her biological father. He was. It was one of the final blows to a relationship already hanging by a thread. By October 2013, the divorce was finalized, and then Timothy Jones was granted full custody of all 5 children. Amber was given only visitation rights, and those had to be supervised by Jones himself. How that kind of court arrangement came to be is still a troubling mystery. But it happened. Timothy moved back to South Carolina, Lexington County again, but not to a fresh start. He and the children lived in another mobile home, this one tucked along a dirt road in Red Bank. It was remote, isolated, and suffocating. It wasn't just a home. It was a prison of Jones's own design, where he could maintain full control over his children's lives with no oversight, no questions. Amber's visits became rare. They didn't happen at the trailer. Instead, she saw her kids at a Chick-fil-A in Lexington. Hardly a warm environment for bonding with your children. The routine was rigid. Phone calls at night, supervised meetings, limited access. To the outside world, Jones painted himself as the responsible parent. He even let his children attend Salvation Army youth nights on Sundays, a facade of normalcy in a world that was anything but. Behind the closed doors of that trailer, the situation was deteriorating fast. Jones was investigated twice for child abuse in that final year, 2 separate chances for someone to intervene. The first came in May 2014, when one of the children reported that their father had spanked them and forced them to do exercises as punishment. Harsh, but within the law, since there were no visible bruises. No marks, no problem. The case was dismissed, but 2 weeks later, another accusation surfaced. This time, it was chilling. A second complaint alleged that Jones routinely beat his children, left bruises, that he wasn't feeding them properly, that he deliberately kept them out of public school, not for homeschooling, but so no one would see the bruises and ask questions. In the case notes, a haunting line stood out. Dad appears to be overwhelmed as he is unable to maintain the home. Yet again, the case wasn't closed. It wasn't resolved either. It just lingered. It sat in limbo. Investigators never had the chance to finish their report, because within weeks before that case could be concluded, 5 innocent children would be dead. A systemic failure at every level. The warning signs were there. The patterns were documented. The cries for help were made, some whispered, some loud, and still no one stepped in. And as Timothy Jones Jr. became increasingly unhinged, fixated on obedience, haunted by betrayal, and crumbling under the pressure of single parenthood, his children became collateral in a storm he could no longer control. On the night of August 28th, inside the family's home, he killed all 5 of those poor little humans who were supposed to be under his protection. He said it started after one of the boys, Nathan, damaged an electrical outlet. That mistake sent him into a rage. He forced the child to do intense physical exercises, what he called detour, until the boy collapsed. In his own words, he said he PT'd his ass until he couldn't handle it anymore. He claimed Nathan died in bed afterward, but later forensic experts didn't agree with that version of events. They believed Nathan had been strangled. That night, he didn't stop. After Nathan died, he turned to the others. In his confession, he said he strangled the children one by one. His eldest daughter, Mara, watched him kill one of her brothers, so he strangled her too. He admitted using a belt on the youngest ones, saying their necks were too small for his hands. He wrapped their bodies in black trash bags and used bleach to mask the smell. Then, he kept them with him. DNA expert Stephanie Stanley later confirmed the identity of the children through genetic samples found in both the car and the home. The bodies had been stored in his vehicle the entire time. But since the man was legally their guardian, No Amber Alert was issued. Their disappearance didn't make headlines until it was far too late.
And I'm going to tell you, we already have. It's a unique case. By the time you reached a verdict of murder, for those 5 kids you had already established, we had proven these 2 aggravating circumstances. First of all, 2 or more persons were murdered by the defendant by one act, pursuant to one scheme or course of conduct. That fits. You can be asked that for every child. And yes, each one of them falls into that category beyond any reasonable doubt. And the second one's even easier. The murder of a child 11 years of age or under. The oldest child in this case was 8 years old, Mira.
The discovery was grim. Off a rural dirt road near Camden, Alabama, 5 small bodies were found stuffed into black trash bags. They had been left there under the sun for nearly a week. By the time they were recovered, the damage was done. The heat, the bags, and exposure to the elements had sped up decomposition. Maggots and animals had gotten to the remains. Dr. Janice Ross, who later conducted the autopsies, described the condition of the bodies as advanced decay. The trash bags, she explained, acted like ovens in the sun, trapping heat and moisture, making everything worse, faster. Timothy was finally stopped on September 6th during a routine traffic checkpoint in Mississippi. He was behind the wheel of a Cadillac Escalade. To the officers, he looked off, odd, erratic, possibly violent. At first, they thought he might just be under the influence. But when they ran his South Carolina plates, everything changed. Alerts lit up about 5 missing children. Inside the car, officers found more than just a strange man. They discovered blood, bleach, maggots, materials commonly used to cook meth, even handwritten notes, disturbing guides, step by step, detailing how to mutilate a body. He was also high on synthetic marijuana at the time. In the following days, he led investigators and FBI agents to the remote site where the children had been dumped. It would later come out in court that this wasn't the original plan. He had intended to drive all the way to the Mexican border to dispose of the bodies. But somewhere along the way, the smell of death grew too strong. The heat, the stench, it was too much. So he pulled over in Alabama and left them there. The details uncovered during the autopsies painted a horrifying picture, one no parent, no human should ever have to hear. Elias was the first to be examined. His small body was wrapped in 2 separate trash bags. He was still wearing his short-sleeved Saks Gotha Elementary shirt. A fractured neck bone confirmed what the rest of his injuries had already suggested. Strangulation. Mira was next. She was found unclothed, with devastating tissue loss across her body. Her left hand was missing entirely. Gabriel's autopsy revealed 2 parallel marks across the side of his neck, lines that matched what would be made by a belt or a wide strap. The signs were unmistakable. He had been strangled with something other than hands. Abigail, the 4th autopsy, had an empty stomach and was the least decomposed of the 5. That, too, said something. She might have been the last to die. Then there was Natan. His body bore deeper signs of violence. Dr. Janice Ross ruled the cause of death for all 5 children as asphyxiation, manual strangulation. Each one was listed as a homicide. Because of the advanced decomposition, she couldn't pinpoint exact times of death, but only one of the children had food in their stomach. That detail alone raised chilling possibilities. Some of them may have been weak, possibly starving before they were killed. Later, the man behind it all was extradited back to South Carolina. At first, he gave no explanation. No reason. Nothing. Just silence. Eventually, though, fragments began to surface. He spoke of anxiety, of paranoia, of betrayal. He told investigators he feared the children were going to kill him, chop him up, and feed him to the dogs. That was his reason. He was placed on suicide watch. In the courtroom, Timothy Jones's own voice told the story.
Trying to find out what happened to my kids.
Okay. Do you understand that you've just confessed to a crime?
Yes.
Do you understand that your confession will be used against you in
Yes.
court? Did you confess voluntarily?
Yes.
Did anyone threaten you if you didn't confess?
No.
Can you speak a little louder?
No.
No?
His confession was played out loud for the jury. On the tape, he admitted, plain and clear, that he wasn't forced to talk. The only thing he said the investigators promised was a good burial for his 5 children. And then, without hesitation, he said it. He killed them, right there in their family's mobile home on South Lake Drive in Lexington. Jones claimed it all started with Natan. He said the boy had broken an outlet, and to punish him, he made him do push-ups and squats. Way too many. Later, Jones said he found his son dead in bed. That moment, he said, changed everything. He described it as a snap, like his mind flipped. Any normal person would have called the police, he told the investigators, but I took the coward route. He said he started following voices in his head. He even blamed what he called a demonic gremlin. After Natan, he strangled the other 4 children, one by one. He admitted putting all 5 of their bodies into the trunk of his vehicle, at first without even using plastic bags. At one point, he confessed he thought about cutting up the bodies or burning them. He even wrote those plans down, but he said he couldn't go through with it. His voice trembled in parts of the tape.
Mercy and give life for no reason at all, without stating a reason. You have that power if you think that fits this case. And say you find a mitigating circumstance. Does that mean life is automatic? No. You can find both aggravating and mitigating circumstances and give death. The law allows that. You can find both and give death. He's going to tell you there's other evidence. We generally call it character evidence. Evidence about that man over there, what kind of person he is. Bad stuff. That doesn't replace or be used for aggravating circumstances, but you get that. You've already found aggravating circumstances. It's going to be character evidence. What kind of man is Tim Jones Jr.? You got a good glimpse in the first phase, but you heard a lot the last few days. What kind of human being he is. What kind of person he is. You also got to get a glimpse of who those little children were. You'd seen their faces, you'd heard their names, but you got to know a little bit about them. That's victim impact evidence. So who is Tim Jones Jr.? Who is this man? Well, you know right out of the gate, as you sit here, he is a murderer.
He broke down crying in court as it played. He said the murders weren't planned. He called it a what just happened moment, as if it had all spun out of control, but investigators and experts saw something different. They found notes in his car, handwritten instructions on how to mutilate bodies. They found bleach, blood, even tools used to make meth. There were materials for disposal, and receipts from Walmart showed he'd bought plastic bins, saws, and acid after the killings. And then came the testimony. One prison guard recalled how Jones said he choked her till she turned purple when talking about his daughter. He said she walked in and saw what he had done, and he couldn't let her go. Another guard said Jones told him Natan was just messing with a light socket when he grabbed him and strangled him. His daughter walked in right after that. Then came the rest. The court's psychiatrist explained that Jones didn't have schizophrenia. like his defense tried to argue. Instead, he was diagnosed with a drug-induced psychotic disorder.
Well, I see people.
What kind of people do you see?
Just normal, everyday people. I don't talk to them because if you guys, you're gonna say start talking to me, not them, dude. If you pay attention to what's going on in my cell, I get so nutty, I start talking to them.
Mm-hmm. Did this happen the day of the crime?
Yes.
What did you see the day of the crime? Did you see people?
Oh, I think you're talking about I'm sorry, this goes back to the
just
voices.
the voices? Okay.
Yeah, the voices ran rampant in my head. And there was no space for logic to talk. They were so loud that the logic was quiet. And
I understand. Do you have any ideas or beliefs that other people think are crazy? If so, what are they?
I'm a Freemason.
You're a Freemason? Okay.
I don't know, they probably think my thoughts about exercise are nuts, but I mean, I tend to think people should take care of themselves.
Okay.
I'm old school in the sense that I think kids should get their asses busted by a teacher.
Okay.
I don't like the fact, and here's one of my problems. This is what the DSS was about.
Yeah.
When I grew up, I didn't worry about kids bringing guns to school and blowing the hell out of each other or the teacher. That didn't happen because there was a healthy fear, and you got corrected by parents. These day and age, kids bring guns to school because I don't think that they're corrected at home, and they take other people's lives because they got no respect for authority. I said, I will not let my kids go out and go blasting people away because I'm not teaching them to respect human life.
On the night of the murders, he'd been using synthetic marijuana and watching violent movies. One moment he was watching a rape scene from American History X. The next moment, listening to a song called Butterfly Kisses. That detail mattered because it showed he understood the world around him. He knew right from wrong.
And whatever faults you see in him, he loves his son. He protected him. He spoiled him. Did you hear his grandmother? Yeah, Tim Jones is a selfish man. That's her grandbaby on trial for his life, but she knew that's the truth. He's selfish. Tim Jones Jr. grew up knowing that he can manipulate his family. He grew up knowing that. And maybe you can say, well, he had such a hard life. But folks, he had the opportunity. He had the gifts to be something so much more. His life is all about choice.
Through all of it, his voice, his planning, his actions, one thing became clear. Timothy Jones made a conscious decision to kill his children. And when he was finally caught driving around with their decomposing bodies in the trunk, it was too late to take any of it back. After 15 grueling days in court, filled with gut-wrenching testimony, disturbing confessions, and heartbreaking details, a jury finally made its decision.
We, the jury, in the above entitled case, have found beyond a reasonable doubt the existence of the following statutory aggravating circumstances, to wit, 2 or more persons were murdered by the defendant by act or pursuant to one scheme or course of conduct, and the murder of 5 children 11 years of age or younger.
On June 4th, 2019, Timothy Jones was found guilty of murdering all 5 of his children. But the case didn't end there. Just over a week later, on June 13th, the jury returned again, this time to decide his fate. They agreed that the crime involved aggravating circumstances, meaning it was especially cruel, heinous, and beyond forgiveness. They sentenced him to death. Jones became one of only 2 men sentenced to death in South Carolina that year. He's still sitting on death row, awaiting execution. Timothy Jones is now another name etched into the long, dark ledger of death row, a father who became his children's executioner and who now waits in silence for justice to finish its course. Who comes to help the children whose own protectors are their biggest enemies? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you've made it this far, be sure to check out this next video. I think you'll enjoy it. Thank you once again for watching.